Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me is Aaron William Freeland. Aaron, how you doing, buddy?
Doing very well, Frank. How are you?
I'm okay. 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 I think I'm okay. I think
Yeah, you sure? You sound
I
like you're okay.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
So this week, and it seems for the past few days, well, all of this week, the Canadian Football League has been a real a busy. They were all busy bees doing all their thing, and the Argos brought in a bunch of guys. Andrew Harris is in, and Jagarrett Davis came from Hamilton. Tell me what you think about the draft. The free agency and how it has felt to you.
Well, I mean, it all sort of started a week and a bit back with the re-signing of McLeod Bethel Thompson. Not to mention Hanak Mwamba, Chris Edwards, Tavares Daniels, and Boris Beatty. I mean, those people are all back this year, which is amazing. But then, like you mentioned, you bring in Harris, you bring in Jagarrett Davis, you bring in Adrian Tracy, you bring in Winton McManus, you bring in Deshaun Amos and Justin Lawrence, and all of a sudden, this team is well, it's definitely looking improved over last year for sure. There seems to be a little bit more scoring punch, and we seem to be shoring things up a little bit on the back end. So, as an Argos fan and a person who will be renewing his season tickets this year, I am not ashamed to admit I'm a fan of a team that I cover. Things are looking a little bit rosier for next season.
Well, any improvement on top of a first place team speaks volumes to hope.
Well, I mean, we did finish first in the East, but 9-5-0 is hardly anything to really crow about. I'd like to see them do a little bit better next year.
You mean like win the Eastern Final?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, that's all that matters. The record doesn't matter as long as you win the Eastern Final. We've also talked about the Canadian Football League, the Ottawa Red Blacks, who have done a masterful job of really, I think, invigorating their fans. I mean, there's Stevie Myers, a good friend of mine. He's got a middle in his thing because he's an anti-Trudeau person. But we'll forget about his anti-Trudeau thing. But his pro-Red Blacks thing, he's crowing all about the Red Blacks now. It's been a few years since he's done a bit about that. And Mike Townsend, a guy that I work with all the time, I used to work with, and I responded to Steve's message, and I said, "Hey, Mike, Steve's back." So he's growing now. He wasn't saying much when Ottawa wasn't doing too well. So that's a good thing for the Ottawa Red Black fans. Let's go over to hockey in the National Hockey League. Last night, the Toronto Maple Leafs lost 5-2 to the Calgary Flames. They were torched, and a lot of people talked about, well, Calgary played the game before. They were tired, but they played both games at home. So that's not like they came from another place and then went home to play the Leafs. They were at home, so they went home to their nice little beds, and then they played the next day. A team that was the lineup. I don't think Aaron was ready for the kind of team that they were going to play.
No, and this is something I've noticed about the Maple Leafs. They tend to do all right when it comes to teams that prefer skating, but when you have a team that likes to grind and get dirty and hits a lot, because they don't have the puck a lot, that's where the Leafs tend to find themselves in just a smidge of trouble. Now, overall, I don't think the Leafs played badly. They most definitely could have played better because they didn't win. That goes without saying. But, by the same token, they were unable, it seemed, to equal the physical effort that was expended by the Flames, and as a result, found themselves on the wrong end of the score.
And apparently, if you're tall, you're allowed to hit somebody with your shoulder in their head.
That was unfortunate. That was a really unfortunate collision. But the primary point of contact was actually the shoulder.
On the head.
just happened to... No, it was actually right in the front of Kasha's shoulder.
Oh, okay.
It
Oh,
just
you're
happened to
saying it
bounce.
hit his shoulder with his shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh.
Before carrying on into his head, which was behind his shoulder. It's kind of the way
Oh, okay,
things
I
move
see,
through
I see.
others. It's unfortunate. It was a bad hit. I'm glad to see that Simmons stepped up, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah,
Or sorry,
it was yeah,
Riley.
go ahead,
Yeah.
correct it. Yeah, it was actually that cute little defenseman did it. What the heck is he doing that? That's what I wanna know. But not bad, not bad. Montreal loses to, well, the new coach lost his first game.
Yeah,
St.
no.
Louis.
Yeah, that Marty St. Louis kid. Uh, it's you know what? It wasn't a bad debut. It wasn't a great debut. Their bump lasted all of their morning skate before that wore off. I just find it interesting that Ducharme had been signed to an extension, a pretty big extension, about 6.5 months before this. I mean, I guess we could all see it coming. Let's be honest.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
I don't know. I don't know, Aaron. Montreal, what happened to them last year, right? If you look in the context of reality, right? Them making the Stanley Cup final was a bit of a skew of reality. Wouldn't you agree?
Uh, I, I, I'd like to think that Carey Price put the dead carcass of the Montreal Canadiens on his back and dragged them bodily across the finish line towards the finals, because it's pretty much what happened. But it just
They weren't a team that anybody really predicted to make it to that point. Is my point. They were a bit of a surprise, correct?
no, most definitely, yeah. It
Right.
wasn't.
And the point I'm going to make is, as big a surprise as they were making it to the Stanley Cup final, the way this year has gone has been a surprise in reverse. What I'm saying is the 2 years are mirror images of each other. Neither of them, I think, is the Montreal Canadiens, the real Montreal Canadiens.
No, plus, I mean, making the playoffs in the first place last year was a bit of a surprise. So the fact that they had a bit of a Cinderella run all the way to the finals is what's happening this year should not have surprised anybody.
And they have had a lot of bad luck. The season started. This started with you saying, "Well, you shouldn't be surprised that Ducharme was fired." Well, I am surprised because I don't know how you fire a coach who has that kind of problem with his team and those kinds of issues. I mean, and then they bring in a guy that has no experience in professional coaching. I mean, he coached, what is it, Pee-wees?
Something like that. Yeah, it's really scraping the bottom of the barrel for somebody who could be technically considered a native son. And I
I
mean,
don't know
even
if
then,
I'd refer it to it that way, but I would say that they're shopping in the wrong aisle. I think, I
mm,
mean, he's a great guy. I mean, this is a guy. He's a leader. He's a communicator. All those things that we heard about him, great. But he just doesn't have the experience of being a head coach. But hey, what do I know? I mean, my goodness. Well, wish him luck. That doesn't mean wishing him bad luck. Just saying it's a bit of an uphill battle for him, right?
now, just so there's no misunderstanding here, when I say when they're looking for a native son, I'm not talking about First Nations. We're talking about he was born in Laval, so
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
close
No,
enough
no.
to Montreal that
Native
it's
Quebecer, a native
yeah,
Quebecer,
exactly,
native Montreal.
exactly.
Yes, 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 yes. And it's okay. It's all good. The Smith Penguins shut out Senators. Crosby still looking for his 500th goal. Stuck on 499.
If there's some small comfort to be had for the Sens here, it's that they did actually manage to keep Crosby from getting his 500th in their barn. Honestly, though, it was a well played game. I actually watched that over the Leaf game, just because I kind of saw the way things were trending when I was watching the Leaf game and said, you know what, this is going to be more entertaining, and stuck with the Sens.
Are you
But
saying the
yeah,
Leaf game got ugly? And
no,
by ugly, I mean hard to watch.
and by hard to watch, I mean somnolence inducing.
And on the other hand, Ottawa was very entertaining, as were the Penguins.
No, and this is something that people fail to recognize. The Senators are very entertaining to. They don't win a lot of games, but they're very fun to watch.
Well, they've been playing a lot better. They've been one of the
Mm,
better teams over the past short stretch. I mean, if you talk about where they are right now, yeah, it don't look good. But if you subtract the first month or two, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, you take away the start of the season yips, and they're not doing badly. The problem is they put themselves in such a big
Yeah,
hole
it's a
during
hole.
that
Yeah,
first month there.
no kidding. You
You
can't
know,
you can't get away from the fact that you played poorly because it ends up, it's like they say, the games you lose in October and November could cost you in April, and
they
this
done
is
bit
what's
you on the
going on
butt.
with them.
Yeah.
Yep. The Wild's Foligno gets 2-game ban for kneeing Jets Lowry. Can you believe that?
Well, it was actually their second fight, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
They fought earlier in the game too. So, and I don't buy Felino's excuse that it was a passion sort of heat of the moment thing. You saw the referee get their hands on him. You saw him stand up, look down, and then drop the knee on Lowry. That's
Yeah.
uncalled for.
No, there is. See, the neat thing about the way the rules work, and it's that way with high sticking. It's not a question of whether there's intent. Intent doesn't matter anymore. You have to be responsible, which is why I shook my head a little bit with the hit against the Leafs and against Kashe. There's some responsibility for when you deliver a hit and when you knee a guy. But he got what? He got 2 games.
Yeah.
How many did Spezza get?
6.
6. Okay,
Yeah.
just keeping track. That's all. Just trying to understand. And Foligno was suspended before, right? He has a
Foligno,
history.
yes, Foligno has been. This isn't his first go round on this sort of thing.
And
I
this isn't about the Leafs. This is about Spezza. It's about an individual being, that's all.
I think the other thing that we're forgetting is that George Peros can assuage and provide a balm for his soul and his conscience in that this happened during a fight when tempers often run high and people do dumb things, as opposed to Foligno, who was looking to deliberately target Pionk's head. So that's another example there of potentially
Okay.
why. I'm not justifying it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying,
Oh,
in the eyes
I'm
of
gonna.
George Peros, you can
I
probably
hear
see how
what
that
you're
happened.
saying, but really, what happened in Spezza's case, he went to hit him, and the guy ducked to get out of the way, and then Spezza continued to try and get him, and he saw all I got left here is this knee in his head.
Yep.
That's all. And if heat of the moment is excusable, I don't know if there's a better heat of the moment when somebody takes somebody head off and you see it happen and you don't want to do anything about it. I think there's a heat of the moment there too. But anyway, I just again, it's the inconsistency of the National Hockey League. We'll go further down the road. We'll have another judgment on what, as far as suspensions, how they work, which is kind of funny. So Michael Backlund, Jacob Markstrom, they lead the Flames to a 6-0 win over the Vegas Knights. Boy, they made the Vegas Knights look bad.
It was that was actually something nice to see, and this is part of a continuing trend for Calgary as well. They continue to play well against bigger opponents, specifically Vegas and the Leafs, winning 6-0 against Vegas and then turning it around and winning 5-2 against the Leafs. That's definitely a trend for them, and I think this is typical about most teams that are coached by the individual who's behind the bench for Calgary.
Absolutely.
They always seem to pick it up during the second half of the season. They always seem to be better. So,
Speaking of coaches behind the bench, Edmonton's having a big problem. They're off to a slow start. They're not starting early enough, and ironically, there's a name connected to that problem. You know who I'm talking about.
yeah. Now there were rumors that they wanted to bring him in, even though the Leafs are still paying him too. So
Are
we'll
they going
have
to
to
give the
keep it.
Leafs a break?
Probably not. I mean, as it currently stands, Woodcroft is now in. They've elevated him from the Bakersfield Condors, which is Edmonton's AHL affiliate, and Tippett is out. This is, I think, the 4th coach so far in Connor McDavid's 7 years in the NHL. So I don't know if this really needs to be said, but I'm going to say it anyways because we don't court enough controversy here as it is. It may be that Connor McDavid is entitled or uncoachable if this is his 4th coach in 7 years. I'm just saying there seems to be a disconnect here.
What's the problem is what you're asking.
I mean, are they finding coaches that don't know how to work with McDavid? Or are they finding that McDavid can't work with coaches, so they're trying to find the right mix? And maybe they're thinking
Here's
at this
what it
point in time,
always
the AHL guy is easier for him to push around to get more ice time.
Here's the way I always think it is. The Raptors, example. They change players all the time. And what do? They keep winning.
I'm not sure what it is, man. I'm not sure what it is
I'm
about the
telling you what
Raptors
it
bench.
is.
I'm
I'm
not
telling
sure
you
what
what
it
it
is about
is.
I'm not sure what it is about the magic that they have coming off the bench there, or the field, the farm team they have in the Raptors 905.
Shall I
But
make it shall I make it clearer what I'm saying?
oh,
Because
I
I'm
think
answering your question. I'm answering your
for
question. The
for
the
our
the
less astute viewers, Frank, I think you may want to make it crystal clear.
I'll make it crystal clear. DeMar DeRozan used to be a Raptor. And the greatest Raptor of all time that won them a championship used to be a Raptor. What hasn't changed? The management team. Feel me?
Oh, I hear you. I
And
hear you.
folks, that's what it's all about. A management team is the key to success. Why? Because one player alone can't win you championships, can't win you first place, can't be the best team ever. It is a conglomeration, and that conglomeration is put together by individuals. Owner, GM, coach. In the Raptors case, it's owner, vice president, GM, coach. Uh, that's the way it works. If you got the right people at the top, they know how to make the people below work. And that's the problem with unfortunately, that's the problem with Edmonton. They have an ownership issue. And that's where I lay that at that point. They just don't have an owner that knows how to win. And if the owner doesn't hire the right people, I'm sorry, that's the way it works. Like every decision an owner makes has a major impact on the organization. Every play a player makes does not make as much difference.
No, it's very true.
And
And it
that's what it comes down to all the time, Aaron.
Mhm.
Always, it's with the Leafs. As much as I've criticized, um, the coach, the management team has done well with. In some cases, in my opinion, they're not doing too bad with two hands tied behind their back. But here's the problem: at the end of the day, winning is all that matters, right? Like winning the championship. We can make it to the playoffs, whoever we are, right? But if we don't win the championship, it ain't the same. And that's the challenge the Leafs have. That's the challenge that Edmonton has. And it's not just about their star player.
No, it really isn't just about the star players for any team.
And
Mhm.
and and
I was going to say, I wanted to point something out here, though.
go ahead.
Something that a lot of Leaf fans seem to be missing every time they lose a game. The Leafs have lost 5 games since the beginning of the month of December. I'd like to repeat that for anybody who's having any issues. The Leafs have lost 5 games since the start of December. This is
Right.
fantastic. They are currently on pace for 117 points. They're 7th in the NHL, 3rd in their division. A loss to Calgary makes them now 30, 11, and 3. This is not the time to pull the dump handle. This is not the time to
I
go
don't
running
think
for the
I don't think
exits.
anybody's saying that with any kind of common sense. You're
No,
talking about
the fringe minority.
the people who don't understand long-term plans. Yeah, so the long-term plan with Edmonton is they've got to figure out how to make the team that they have work, and no matter what they do, it doesn't seem to work. Um, you know, they brought in a pretty good Leaf into their organization that was supposed to improve things. It didn't, and I'm not saying it's because of Hyman it didn't improve. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that they've made moves. So what's wrong with the team? Why aren't these moves that are supposed to be better working? And unfortunately, Aaron, it comes down to what you're talking about. Again, I repeat, DeMar DeRozan was a Toronto Raptor. They got rid of him. They won a championship. And they won a championship with a guy they brought in that was hurt that nobody wanted. Everybody thought this crazy. How could they trade, DeMar DeRozan for a guy who's injured? Well, you know, playing management, won a championship. Now he goes, and here's a team on a roll again. So I truly believe that they're not called team sports for nothing, Aaron.
No, you're right on that one, Frank.
They're not called team sports for nothing. Speaking of team sports, why don't we talk about team not sports guys? Brad Marchand suspended for 6 games for a punch to the face of Tristan Jarry, and then a seeing eye stick blade to see if he could fit it in his grill. And he got 6 games. And what all I saw that Jarry did was he sort of teased him with the puck when he got his glove, and he held it. Is this what you want? And it set Marchand off.
Well, apparently Tristan was actually trying to flip the puck to a Penguins fan in the stands behind the net.
Yeah, that was after that.
Oh, was that after that? See, I missed
Yeah.
that. I missed that little tease part. But at the same time, I think it's about time Brad started serving some time for his dumbness. I mean, this is a perfect example of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. He went out to talk to the press and complained about the fact that all of a sudden they seem to be being a lot harder on him before. And here's the thing,
right.
Brad.
But he's right.
Yeah, but they're tired of his BS, man.
Oh, no, I agree with that.
Licking players was one thing. Kissing players was another. You punched a dude in the back of the head when he was on his knees and then scarpered for the bench during the playoffs, Brad. Come on, buddy. That's 10 plus. You know better than that.
That's what I'm saying. I agree with him that look at it from his perspective. You've been getting away with some of the, put in everything you just said about him getting away with and doing. Imagine now in his mind, that stuff's cool because the league didn't punish him. As a Bruin and as a teammate of Chara, the Bruins have historically gotten away with all kinds of stuff. The punch in the head, we've seen that in the playoffs with Boston and Toronto. I remember the captain taking a shot to the face, just the same as Jarry did, and nothing happened at the end of a period to the Boston players. He has lived a charmed life because he's been, with the Bruins, and he got a different set of rules. If he was on a different team, he would have been suspended far more and far longer than he has been. And that's a simple fact if you just review his history. And I'll repeat again. How many games did Jason Spezza get for his first offense?
I think the NHL has finally gotten to the point where they need to make an example of him. So,
well, they can't ignore it anymore. We now live in a world where Jason Spezza got a 6-game suspension for doing something once, right? And now some of the guys that are repeat offenders, you'll notice after that happened, a lot of players before the Jason Spezza, there was a lot of forgiveness. There were fines. Remember? Remember before Spezza, there were fines. They were avoiding giving suspensions earlier in the year, if you remember.
Yeah, 90% of it was he's received a $5,000 fine, which is the maximum allowable under the CBA.
And then Spezza got the 6th game, and now they're back to giving people game suspensions. And that's
I can't say I'm upset by that, Frank.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm neither upset or not upset. I'm just saying about the problem with officiating always comes down to one salient point, and it comes down to one word. Do you want to say it for me, or shall I say it?
Go for it, Frank.
The C word: consistency.
Definitely
and that's lost. They can't make up their mind. Depends which way the wind's blowing. The Coyotes are going to use Arizona State's new hockey arena, and they're going to pay for some upgrades.
Yeah, so this is good news for them. They will now have a home for the next 3 years. Now, the arena itself is supposed to hold 5,000 people, but that's not actually going to be the case. Because, it's going to be about 3. They're going to have to dump some money into the stadium to make it playable for them. They're going to have to add dressing rooms, take out seating, add, training facilities, all that sort of fun stuff.
Private boxes.
Oh, see, that's a good way to make money, and I would pay for that if I could do that in Arizona. Oh, in a heartbeat, I'd do that.
Essentially, that's what they're going to have to do, I guess. Well, listen, thank goodness. I got to say this for the Coyotes. Thank goodness they weren't in Canada, or they would have ended up like the Nordique, the original Jets. They wouldn't be there.
Nashville.
When Quebec hemmed and hawed about building a new arena, Bettman and the boys took the team right out. Bye. And the same thing with the Jets. You don't have enough people showing up at your games, and your arena's too small. Gone. And you know where Winnipeg went, right?
Yep. And where are they now? Oh yeah. Hey,
They're in a university arena.
who knew?
Nothing I like better than consistency. I got to be honest with you. All right, the Ukraine involved a little bit in the Olympics. At least Ukrainians are. Um, they're challenging the IOC rules on demonstrations. You know, the Ukrainians that are at the Olympics, the athletes, are concerned about what's going on in their country.
Yeah. Now there was an individual, Vladislav Heriskievich, after his skeleton run, held up a sign that said "No war in Ukraine." Now Heriskievich is from Kiev. He held up the sign after his third of 4 runs in the skeleton competition. He's currently not a medal contender, but it made it onto national television anyways. The whole thing behind the Olympics was it's supposed to be apolitical. There's not supposed to be any sort of politicking or campaigning or anything like that. Everybody, of course, remembers the fists in the air and the gloves and that sort of thing for that sort of demonstration. Now, the IOC has not stipulated punishments, but has instead promised to evaluate cases individually based on the degree of disruption caused. I should think protesting against Russia invading my home country would be one of those things that gets you a little bit of leeway.
I think it gets a little bit of leeway, but speaking English when you're a Chinese goaltender originally born outside of China is not allowed.
No, nor apparently is using a VPN. So
yes,
that's another issue.
Yes, especially because in China you're not allowed to have a VPN; they're illegal.
Exactly.
All right, so sledding mishap knocks out Canada's hockey coach.
Now, it almost locked him out. He actually has already had surgery to repair his rib, and he's flown in this morning. So he should be arriving in time for their game against Team USA tonight, which should be fun. But that was a team building exercise that landed him in hospital in the first place. And it's like, dude, you could have gone to like an all you can eat or Timmy Hortons instead of sledding, but here we are.
Canada beat Germany without him.
No, it was a good start for the men's hockey team, winning 5-1. Some decent hits in that game too. One of the German players got trucked behind the net right before they scored one of their goals, so that was good to see. Nice to see that without stars they can still put the points up.
Absolutely. Canada-US hostilities are in the near future.
Yeah, so for anyone who wants to watch the game, it should be on this evening. I believe it's at 11 p.m. So the United States is actually coming off beating China 8-0. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Another 3 letters, but these ones are good ones. PVR.
Yes. Sorry. I'm like, I don't recall a country named PVR.
No, it's another 3 letters. These ones are good. PVR. Russians unhappy despite their 2-0 start. What the heck are they unhappy about?
Well, I mean, yeah, granted they won the game, but you know, they won 1-0 on Wednesday. And so far their 2-0 game against Denmark had an empty netter. So for a team that should be lighting the lamp a lot, they've won both games, but they haven't been scoring as much as they should have, I think is their concern at this point. So
Canada, Sweden.
This is going to be interesting. I mean, it was, at least for the first 5 minutes. I don't know if you caught the game this morning, but 11-0 was the final.
Ouch.
Oh, yeah.
The Czechs gave the U.S. a bit of problems. Not much, though.
No. I mean, at one point, they were very, very close. And they were actually down 1-0. But they scored 3 times during the third period to finally win. So, I mean, U.S. and Canada have rolled through the first 3 preliminary round games, outscoring their opponents 47-5. It kind of makes you wonder what's going on in the U.S. camp if they were trailing for most of the game to the Czechs. So we'll see what happens.
No kidding. Looking at curling, Jones' perfect streak at Olympics ends.
Yeah, this was not something that we expected, unfortunately, but it looked like a case of the yips. Jones was 11-0 in 2014 in Sochi to win gold and led her team to a 12-7 win over South Korea on Thursday, but unfortunately dropped an 8-5 decision to Japan this morning. So She's not the only one either. Brad Gushue's rink also lost today.
Yikes.
So their perfect streaks have both ended.
Yeah, Canadians are not very good at the Olympics. This is something that happens all the time at the Olympics. They just can't seem to pull it together. It's just amazing. Japanese ski jumper apologized for uniform issue. I like what she said. Changed everyone's life.
Well, and here's the thing: the violation was that Takanashi's uniform was actually 2 centimeters wider than allowed around her thighs. And according to the IOC, material in excess of regulations could provide extra lift, like a miniature wing, and give the jumper an unfair advantage. Now, she wasn't the only one disqualified here. It's important to note that.
Yes.
Jumpers from Austria, Norway, and Germany were also disqualified. German jumper Katharina Althaus is a 3-time Olympian and 2018 silver medalist, and she was disqualified as well. And she's been ski jumping for 11 years now, and she's never had this issue. So,
yeah, so
it
it's all about creating wind resistance, and if you look at a flying squirrel, it's wind resistance, right? And that's what it's all about. And they're not supposed to have any, right? So, and the only way to judge it being fair is to have it tight with no looseness at all. So, spandex only, no cotton, please.
Like the yellow flyer uniforms we had in 1988. Remember those?
Absolutely. You're 100% right. Yep.
Left nothing to the imagination.
Well, you know what? It's the same thing, things for a different reason. But, football players, their uniforms have gotten tighter. They used to be loose. But then what happened was they figured out that people were grabbing the uniform, right? And it made it easier for you to tackle a player. So, in this case, the opposite is true. It's to your advantage that it's tighter. All right. And figure skating. Kamila Valieva. Her controversial Olympic saga to be determined at appeal hearing, taking some sort of heart medication to help. And 15 years old.
See, this I have trouble believing. But she was suspended by the Russian anti-doping agency earlier this week for having a banned substance in her system during a test taken back in December. That conveniently enough wasn't processed until after the Olympics started. But she quickly won an appeal of that suspension, so she was back allowed to compete again. So now the IOC is appealing that appeal. So if she's disqualified, this would mean then that the Russian silver medal would be vacated. And Canada would be elevated to a bronze from 4th place. I'm not sure if that's how I want to win it.
Well, it's still fair. It's about fairness.
No, it is. And, you'll get a medal, but I feel bad for the rest of her teammates if she cheated.
So. Aaron, we're number 2. We're number 2. Well, I don't know. After today, we might not be. But anyway, we were number 2 last night when I checked. Speed skating. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Have the Chinese gotten lucky with all the suspensions and the penalties?
I'm just looking at some of these and just, So, the Chinese men's short track relay team advanced based on a judge's ruling. The 2 teams in front of them were judged to have impeded them. China was in the 5,000 relay semifinal with Canada, Italy, and Japan. Canada and China were first and second when a gap opened up, and then China's Li Wenlong went for the pass, but went down. According to the judges, it was because the 2 teams in front of them interfered. So that's how they were allowed to go through. Now, there is also footage of a Canadian skater falling, and it looks like one of the Chinese players actually threw a lane marker at one of the Canadian
kicked it towards him.
But nothing was done in that situation. So, it is the Olympics. There are always going to be controversies. As a matter of fact, one of the ones that I didn't add in here, Frank, is the Finnish team accusing the Denmark team of colluding with Canada to make ice conditions in Denmark's favor for short track speed skating.
So we're helping Denmark win?
Yeah, it's a story that the Canadian ice maker from Calgary has vehemently denied. So,
okay, was this ice he was making in Calgary or in China?
In China.
Oh, okay, I thought it was ice he was making in Calgary. Helped? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, all right. You know what? When you have that, like the games, the Olympic Games are tarnished, Aaron. And I don't have no intention of offending your background, your Chinese background, but these Olympics are under a pall to begin with, and now they're becoming appalling with all the, like, are these athletes all of a sudden incapable of playing by the rules? Like, it looks, you can't say unprofessional because they're not pros, but it doesn't seem, that these athletes are elite, that they can't even stay in their own lane when they're supposed to stay in their own lane, not kick markers, not hold each other. I mean, as far as speed skating is concerned, it has a black eye on it, because this is just too much. And I'm not saying taking a side or anything, just saying it smells a little bit.
Oh, it definitely does. And the amount of drama and the amount of skullduggery that seems to be going on surrounding this, and the desire to look good and put China as the best nation, it all just, it smacks of impropriety, unfortunately. Add
It's what it
in,
looks like, right? It's not.
yeah,
Listen, we don't have any proof that that's going on. It's just an opinion based on what we're seeing with our own eyes.
no, I mean, as an observer, if you sit there and you watch long enough, you see all of these things. You see what's happening. You see the news stories that are coming out. I mean, you look at the restrictions to access. You look at, there was an
Absolutely.
Australian reporter that was hauled away while he was doing a live hit.
Yeah, right. While he was doing a hit,
Like, come
they
on.
brought him back. They brought it.
Wow.
It was a her, right? Wasn't it? Wasn't it a her?
Not sure, to be honest with you.
I think it was a
But,
her, because I
mhm.
remember. I'm trying to remember. I think it was a her. They dragged her away, and in Australia they're doing the news, and you see the news person goes, "Hey, did you see what just happened there?" And she did eventually come back and finish the story, but it might have been a guy. I don't remember. The person came back. I was more taken aback by them being dragged out. And also, there's been some reports that while they're talking about China and what's going on there, the signal gets ended, and sorry, we're having technical difficulties. We don't like what they're saying, so you're not going to see it. And the Chinese are doing this a lot, eh? This is something they become really good at, is basically ensuring that the freedom of information that they don't like isn't free within their country. Now, we can debate whether that becomes the other part of the story or the show that we do, then it becomes newsworthy. But let's move out of the Olympics and let's get to professional basketball. And the Toronto Raptors, remember what I was saying earlier about trading DeMar DeRozan and letting the best Raptor of all time, only because he won a championship. And this kid, Trent, that they traded for, Trent Jr. Aaron, this kid is awesome.
Oh, dude dropped 42 points last night. They ended up with a 139-120 victory over the Houston Rockets, and they're now sitting at an 8-game win streak. This is the longest active winning streak in the NBA currently, and the loss has extended Houston's losing streak to 4 games. This is actually Trent's 7th game with 30 points or more so far this
And
season.
that's a
I'm
record.
not saying this kid has been a steal, but oh my goodness.
No,
It's
he
been
has
absolutely
been a
fantastic.
steal. Norman Powell was a great player. He was a great player, but I don't think it. Who was it? Was it Dallas that they made the trade with to get him? No,
Yep.
San Antonio.
San Antonio, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, San Antonio. I'm trying. I don't have it written here, folks. This is just remembering. Yeah, they made the trade with San Antonio. If they had it to do again, trust me, they wouldn't have made the move. And he's 23, Aaron.
Here's the crazy part, too. This is also Pascal Siakam's 6th 30-point game so far this season as well. So Spicy P is on fire. Gary Trent Jr. is just lighting it up. They had 25 and 26 points respectively by halftime, and Toronto was up 73-64 at that point. I mean, they came ready to play.
And they're amazing. Again, this is why I said about management. The players are great, right? But management has to bring them in, and for them to have made that trade. Well, look how the Raptors won the championship. And then you look at the guy they bought in, Young, I think his name is, and this guy is great on defense. What did they lose? Dragic, a guy who didn't want to be a Raptor. I'm surprised they did that well. You know what I mean? Like they got something pretty good.
No, I'm very glad. And the next opportunity that we'll have to see our new player play is on Saturday night against Denver. So, get a new guy on the trade deadline, get him right into the lineup, and let's go.
And Aaron, I'm gonna, we keep bringing the Leafs back into this, but they are central to what we do. The worst thing about losing to Calgary, we would have had 2 Toronto teams on 8-game winning streaks.
Oh, we can't duplicate that, right?
Isn't that terrible?
Oh,
That's got to be a record. That's got to be, that would have been a record.
That would have been
Seven
awesome.
each. Probably 7 each is a record. Two teams, the same town. Anyway, so Raptor fans, Leaf fans, stop your whining. Teams are doing great. Speaking of Toronto teams, I don't know if you heard this guy named Josie Altidore.
Yeah, no. What with Giovinco not being re-signed and moving on to another team, and Josie, I think, is getting a little long in the tooth here. But I think that after 7 seasons, Josie is on his way out the door. So we'll be sad to see him go, but
but this fits under the same category we've been talking about all along. Just because a player is a star doesn't mean they're good for your team.
No, exactly. And I mean, as it currently stands, we have a couple other players, I think, that are younger that can fill in just as well. I think one of them is actually playing for the Canadian national team, or will be again shortly. So I'm not too upset about that. And we'll have to see how it goes from here. But yeah, his post to his 200,000 followers was accompanied by a photo of him waving to the crowd. So he said, "Thank you, Toronto, and all the fans for a wonderful 7 years. To all the staff and my teammates throughout this time, thank you. Toronto will always be home. Thank you, MLSC and Larry and Judy Tenenbaum, for all of your support over the years. See you soon, and all the very best in the future." So it looks like he is done here. So all the best.
He is to be thanked by all Toronto sports fans, because the one thing we know about Toronto, when they win a championship, it doesn't matter what sport, every Torontonian celebrates. We're always looking for a reason to celebrate, Aaron.
Now, the other thing to remember here is Toronto's now seen 17 different players depart from their first team roster that slumped to a 6-18-10 record last season when they finished 26th. So it might be time, and I think management might have realized that some of these guys had hit their best before, and it was time to start moving on or getting ready to rebuild.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go to Ottawa. A lot going on in Ottawa. We start by it's the third straight week of protests. In other words, the truckers are in Ottawa. Premier Doug Ford declares a state of emergency. The U.S. offers help to Canada, tells Trudeau they're willing to help with the border problem. What do you think of those 3 different things that deal with the same problem?
Well, Doug Ford finally invoking a state of emergency in Ontario now means that the OPP and law enforcement have additional teeth. They can now fine people up to $100,000. They can also get people put in jail now for up to 1 year for doing this sort of stuff. I've seen pictures actually that are coming out of Windsor where people who are part of the blockade are actually using school children to block roads and
holding hands.
I just, the U.S. federal government offering to step in to help Trudeau with some of their issues. Now, the White House has said that U.S. officials had multiple conversations on Thursday with the Canadian counterparts about the blockade, not to mention the fact that the city of Windsor, as well as an auto parts company, have now managed to secure an injunction from the Ontario Supreme Court in order to get the stuff on the bridge moving again. So,
do you know who Jen Psaki is?
I do. Yeah, okay. She's the press secretary for Joe Biden. Well, what did she say? I missed that.
Today, they were all there to listen to the real intense relationship between the Ukraine, the U.S., and of course, Russia, right? And they were going to do all that because it's really getting heightened. And she basically goes, okay, but first let's talk about the Prime Minister of Canada. We had a conversation. The president talked to the Prime Minister of Canada, offered any help. We appreciate that Canada's going to try and solve the problem at the border. And then they went into the Ukraine thing. They paused the Ukraine problem and went to the Windsor problem first.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that because Canada is the United States' biggest trading partner. So,
yeah, but Trudeau and Canada have not been first on the U.S.'s radar. In fact, for the first time that a president's been elected in God knows how long, the first out of state leader at the White House was not the Canadian Prime Minister. And I'm not just talking about this Trudeau.
So no, I can certainly appreciate that, but major auto manufacturers like Toyota and Ford have said they're facing supply chain problems because of the issues at the border.
Well, this is something that some say it emboldens the truckers and the people who support them, but it also, we've said this before, and I keep saying it, is that politicians have tough decisions to make. They can't always be guided by opinion polls. Sometimes they have to do the right thing, and I'll leave them to figure that out. Ontario has stopped trucker convoys before. There's police lined up, at the legislature in anticipation of a visit.
Now, I find it interesting, however, that a few years back there was actually a protest by dump truck drivers. Now, I think it actually took less time for them to end the dump truck driver strike than it has for them to stop this trucker convoy. And I think it's because the dump truck drivers went directly to MTO offices and picketed there, as opposed to.
I think also there was a narrow focus on their part.
It's possible. It's
right?
possible.
Because let's face it, the convoy is not about truckers only. Right?
True.
It's just like it isn't just about mandates. So you've got a lot of groups of people to satisfy. And if they're all going to stand together until everybody's satisfied, well, we're going to wait till the cows come home. Federal conservatives can call on anti-vaccine mandate protesters to get down the barricades. Bring them down. Should they?
I find it interesting that a party that claims to support the workers and is as dead set against the federal liberals as they are have turned around now and decided to stab their own supporters in the back, because we all know that the supporters of the Conservative Party are the working class types like truckers and the downtrodden and what have you.
No, and even if they're not, because you're throwing some sarcasm out there, they're definitely the friends of business, and business isn't being helped by this situation. So it is what it is, I guess.
I mean, there's a certain irony in these people who are driving around claiming they're for freedom, forcing people to stay in their homes and forcing businesses to be closed and curtailing business activities in the name of their freedom. But hey,
wait, are you saying that their actions are their words say freedom, their actions say nobody else is entitled to the freedom that they want?
Look, I'm just going to put this out there. Just because people say they love freedom doesn't necessarily mean they like your freedom.
Well, we had this conversation a little bit on Open Forum, and I'll leave it to, like I said in Open Forum, my two favorite words are mutual respect. It takes two to have mutual respect. Hundreds gather in Fredericton for convoy-style protest against COVID-19 measures.
Now, there were a whole bunch of people that were going to be doing that. Police, however, barricaded streets and closed schools in order to prevent any possible side effects to children. About 300 people were, marching and waving signs and Canadian flags near the legislature this morning. But as it turns out, they were specifically and narrowly held, so that's a good thing.
Triple murder solved after 50 years in the U.S.
Yeah, so this is one of those cold cases that I don't think anybody ever expected to be solved, but Watauga County is where we're looking for this, and it's basically about the so-called Dixie Mafia. February 3rd, 1972, a family of three was found murdered in their home in Boone, North Carolina during a snowstorm. Bryce Durham, his wife Virginia, and their 18-year-old son Bobby had been strangled to death. The couple's son-in-law, Troy Hall, found the family in the bathroom, all three of them, after he and his wife Ginny went to check on them. And they'd been unable to solve the brutal murders for decades until a break came up in 2019, where they got an important tip from Georgia authorities, Watauga County Sheriff Len Hagman said. This led them to one of Billy Sunday Burt's son, Shane Burt, who claimed that during a prison visit, his father admitted to killing three people in North Carolina mountains during a heavy snowstorm. So once that came out, they were able to reopen the investigation for this cold case and track down the killer.
Absolutely. A man bought 264 lottery tickets. What's that about?
Oh, this is the luckiest dude on the face of the earth. Seriously, this guy, he ended up winning himself $132,000. This is Jalen Taylor of Charlottesville. I'm not sure which Jalen Taylor that is, so if you're his relative, hold off. I'm pretty sure he'll get in touch with you. But he bought 200.
Or you won't hear from him ever
Oh,
again.
well, that too. He bought 264 tickets, and each ticket was worth $500 each.
What?
Yeah, he went big, and he bought 2 large batches of pick 3 tickets over a 2-month span. So the first was 104 tickets with the number 960 he got for the November 18th. The second was 160 tickets with the number 542 he bought for the January 10th drawing, and both of his 3-digit combinations were drawn, netting him 52 grand with his first batch of tickets and 80 grand with the second. All of his tickets came from Food Lion and Harris Teeter. He says he didn't know how he came up with the numbers. He just said, I got a feeling these 3 numbers are going to be lucky. I'm just going to throw a whole bunch of money down.
Well, geez, that's pretty good. Usually when you have good luck, people say buy a lottery ticket. Oh, maybe he should go to Vegas. Know what I'm saying?
That's a good way for
what
him
I'm
to put his
saying?
money back into the economy, Frank. I think that's a
Go to
fantastic
Vegas,
idea.
maybe. Let's go back to Ottawa. Ottawa close to removing pre-arrival COVID-19 test for fully vaccinated Canadian travelers. Sorry.
Now, this is discussions recently. The federal government said they're close to removing mandatory PCR testing for fully vaccinated Canadians who travel outside of Canada. So this means that instead of having to spend anywhere from $80 to $270 when you're traveling back from outside the country, you no longer have to take a test within 72 hours of your scheduled departure. This is something that Jean-Yves Duclos, the health minister, hinted at. They said they're actively reviewing the measures in place on our borders and should be able to communicate changes on this next week.
The province is reviewing public health measures as Ontario's COVID-19 hospitalizations drop below 2,000.
So this is the first time that they've actually dropped below 2,000 since early January. Ontario was reporting 1,897 hospitalizations as of Thursday. It's the first time this has been this low since the beginning of the year. 56% of those people were admitted to the hospital specifically for COVID-19 treatments, and 44% were admitted for other reasons but had since tested positive. Now, the other thing to keep track of here, Frank, and you'll be interested in this one, the number of COVID patients in ICUs has dropped, not significantly, but enough, from 449 to 445. 76% of patients admitted to intensive care were admitted specifically for the virus, while the others were admitted for other reasons and then tested positive.
Have they given any statistics as to the status of the people who are in the hospital in regards to vaccinated, unvaccinated?
As it currently stands, they're showing that the majority of the individuals who are being hospitalized and are in ICUs are currently unvaccinated or single-dosed, not completely. And it's obviously correspondingly lower for those individuals who are fully vaxxed and boosted.
So a smaller pool is providing most of the people.
Yeah, that's correct.
Massive amount, because you're talking 1/10 of the people are providing 10 times as many.
Now, they've also announced that high contact sports, choir, and other extracurricular activities can now resume in Ontario schools after a temporary pause.
Perfect.
Low contact sports that allow for physical distancing like tennis and whatnot have been ongoing in schools, but basketball and volleyball were paused in January, so they're set to take those off in another couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Well, good for the kids and good for the athletes. It's good for them to be able to get back to normal, whatever normal means today. Aaron, it's been an interesting week. Thanks for doing this. I look forward to next week. Hopefully the world's at peace when we come back. It gets pretty frightening with what's going on.
It's certainly something that we'll need to keep an eye on for Monday's show. I look forward to having nothing further to report on that front, God willing, on Monday.
Good hockey games, great Olympics, and a little fun news.
That's about all we can ask for.
Hey?
Right?
Okay. Aaron, thanks for doing this, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
For Aaron William Freeland, I'm Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, airing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Ciao for now, everyone.
All right, everyone, welcome to Candid Frank Live after the final whistle. I'd like to thank our production crew, specifically Eduardo Hariri, for helping us put on a fantastic show, as he does every week.
It's too bad he's not here to hear it.
Well, you know, it is what it is.